Hi everyone, this is Refresh and I'm here with a battle between two Dominaria sealed decks versus the Battle of the Horde challenge deck from Born of the Gods. On the left here in the gold sleeves we have an Abzan sealed deck, and on the right we have a Rakdos sealed deck. We are using the hero card, the Harvester, which will let us draw a card and then discard a card each turn. We are using the Explorer, which will let us play 2 lands on each turn. And the Vanquisher, which will let us start with an additional card and hold an additional card. We'll be playing our first game on normal difficulty with 3 turns before the Horde attacks. We'll start with 8 cards apiece. Abzan has a Plains on Sarah's Wings, Skittering Surveyor, Eviscerate, Plains, Sapling Migration, Plains, and Grundle the King. We have enough Plains to use the Skittering Surveyor to get any force that we need, so we'll go ahead and keep this hand. Rakdos has a Swamp, a Stronghold Confessor, a Mountain, Varix Bladewing, Fight with Fire, Cast Down, and the Eldest Reborn. I think this has enough variety of spells and lands to keep, so we'll go ahead and start with this as well. Turn 1, we'll play 2 Plains, and a Mountain, and a Plains. And then we'll end the turn. At the end of the turn, we'll use the Harvester. Abzan will draw a Sergeant at Arms. Rakdos will draw a Swamp. We will discard Cast Down, and we will discard Eviscerate. We'll untap. We'll draw. Abzan draws a Woodland Cemetery, and Rakdos draws an Eviscerate. We will play a Plains. We'll tap all 3. We'll play the Skittering Surveyor. We'll go searching for a forest. There it is. We'll put it in our hand. We'll shuffle. We will play the forest. Rakdos will play a Swamp and a Mountain. We'll tap out. We will play the Stronghold Confessor Kicked, making it a 3/3. And then we will end the turn. At the end of the turn, we'll use the Harvester. Abzan will draw a Swamp, and we will discard that Swamp. Rakdos will draw a Mountain, and we will discard the Eviscerate. We'll untap. We'll draw. Abzan draws Gideon's Reproach. Rakdos draws Fiery Intervention. This is the final turn before the Horde gets to go. We'll play the Woodland Cemetery and the Mountain. We'll cast On Sarah's Wings on the Stronghold Confessor, giving it +1/+1 Flying, Vigilance, and Lifelink. And we will attack with the Flying, Vigilant, Life-linked Stronghold Confessor for 4 damage, and we'll gain 4 life to go up to 24. We'll deal 4 damage to the Horde. We got rid of a Plundered Statue. When Plundered Statue is put into the graveyard from anywhere, each player draws a card. Abzan draws a Swamp. Rakdos draws a Swamp. We'll go ahead and play both of the Swamps. And we will pass turn. The Horde will play the top 3 cards. The first one being Descend upon the Prey. Whenever a Minotaur attacks this turn, it gains first strike until end of turn and must be blocked this turn if able. We also play Amogus' Chosen, which comes into the battlefield tapped, and a Minotaur Younghorn, which will gain first strike and must be blocked this turn if able. Minotaur Younghorn attacks with first strike, and it must be blocked if able. The 4/4 Stronghold Confessor will block it. It will take 2 in the first strike damage, hit back for 4, killing the Younghorn Minotaur, getting us 4 more life to go up to 28, and that will end the Horde's first turn. We'll go ahead and use the Harvester at the end of the turn. Abzan will draw a Plains. Rakdos will draw a Voltaic Servant. We will discard the Voltaic Servant, and we will discard Gideon's Reproach, and then we'll untap. We'll draw. Abzan draws a Plains. Rakdos draws a Swamp. We'll play the Swamp. We'll play both Plains. We will attack with the Stronghold Confessor and the Skittering Surveyor for 5. It gets us 5 life to go up to 33. We'll do 5 damage to the Horde. We get rid of a Minotaur Younghorn, a Phobos Reaver, a Minotaur Goreseeker, a Vitality Salve, and Intervention of Keranos. When Vitality Salve is put in the graveyard from anywhere, each player returns a creature card from his or her graveyard to the battlefield. There are no creatures in Abzan's graveyard, and there is a Voltaic Servant, which is returned to the battlefield. On the second main phase, we'll cast Grun, the Loathing King, and a kicked Varix Bladewing, creating a Karak's Bladewing token. At the end of the turn, Voltaic Servant will untap the Skittering Surveyor, And we will pass the turn to the Horde. Mogus is chosen will untap, and we will play 3 more cards. We have a Phobos Reaver and 2 Minotaur Younghorns. All of them will attack. We will block the Phobos Reaver with the Stronghold Confessor. We will block each of the Minotaur Younghorns with the Blade Wings, and we'll just go ahead and let the Mogus is chosen through. This will kill all of these. We'll take 5 to go back down to 28. At the end of the turn, we will use the Harvester. Abzan draws a Saproling Migration. Rakdos draws a Keldon Overseer. We'll discard the Keldon Overseer, and we'll discard the Sergeant at Arms. We'll untap. Abzan will draw a Forest. Rakdos will draw a Swamp. We'll play the Swamp. We'll play the Forest. We'll attack with everybody for 6, 10, 11, 19 damage, and we'll get 4 life to go up to 32. There are 2 artifacts in here. The first being Refreshing Elixir. When Refreshing Elixir is put into the graveyard from anywhere, each player gains 5 life. That'll give us 10 life to take us up to 42. And we have the Massacre Totem. When the Massacre Totem is put into the graveyard from anywhere, put the top 7 cards of the Horde's library into its graveyard. We got the Altar of Mogus. When Altar of Mogus is put into the graveyard from anywhere, the Horde sacrifices 2 Minotaurs. The Horde will sacrifice its Mogus is chosen. On the second main phase, we will play 1 kicked Saproling Migration, getting us 4 Saproling tokens. And we will pass the turn to the Horde. The Horde will play its top 3 cards. We have a Phobos Reaver, a Touch of the Horn God, and a Minotaur Goreseeker. Touch of the Horn God says when a Minotaur attacks this turn, it gains Death Touch until end of turn. It will be attacked by the Phobos Reaver and the Minotaur Goreseeker. We'll just go ahead and take all 5 damage and go back down to 37. At the end of the turn, we'll use the Harvester. Abzan draws Grun the Lonely King, and Rakdos draws a Swamp. We'll go ahead and discard the Swamp, and we will discard Grun the Lonely King. We'll untap. We'll draw. Abzan draws a Benelish Marshal, and Rakdos draws a Pardic Wanderer. We'll attack with everybody again for 23 damage. There are 2 artifacts found here. First is the Plundered Statue. It gets us a card each. Abzan draws Slimefoot the Stowaway. Rakdos draws a Jaius Immolating Inferno. And we also get a Refreshing Elixir, getting us 10 life total, taking us up to 47. Then we'll play Jaius Immolating Inferno for X equals 3, and we'll do damage to these 2 targets to kill them. And that will destroy the Horde. So the Dominaria sealed decks have successfully defeated the Horde on normal difficulty. We're going to clean up, and we'll be back for round 2 against a more difficult Horde. Back for game 2 against the Horde from Born of the Gods. We're going to play on difficult mode with only 2 turns before the Horde starts charging in. We'll start with 8 cards apiece and see how it goes. Abzan has Eviscerate, Saproling Migration, Forebear's Blade, On Sarah's Wings, Woodland Cemetery Plains, Gideon's Reproach, and Memorial to Unity. This is not a great start, but I think it's still not bad enough that I wouldn't keep it. Rakdos has the Eldest Reborn, Mountain, Fire Intervention, Bloodstone Goblin, Swamp, Thallid Omnivore, and Cast Down. I think this is also a keepable hand. We'll go ahead and get started. Turn 1, we'll play Memorial to Unity and Woodland Cemetery, both tapped. And we'll play a Mountain and a Swamp. Here we'll play a Bloodstone Goblin. And then at the end of the turn, we will use the Harvester. Abzan will draw a Shana Siste's Legacy, and Rakdos will draw a Swamp. We will discard the Cast Down, and we will discard the Gideon's Reproach. We'll untap. This is our final turn before the Horde starts charging in. Abzan will draw a Vicious Offering. Rakdos will draw an Urza's Tome. We'll go ahead and play a Swamp and a Mountain over here. We'll play the Plains over here. We'll attack with the Bloodstone Goblin for the first 2 points of damage. We'll play Shana as a 1/1, and we'll play a Thallid Omnivore. And then we'll pass the turn to the Horde. The Horde will play 3 cards. The first one being Consuming Rage. Whenever a Minotaur attacks it this turn, it gets +2/+0 until end of turn. Destroy that creature at the end of combat. We also play a Phobos Reaver and a Unquenchable Fury. Each Minotaur can't be blocked this turn except by 2 or more creatures. The Phobos Reaver will attack as a 4/3 that can't be blocked by 2 or more except by 2 or more creatures, and it will die at the end of the turn. We'll go ahead and take 4 to go to 16, and the Phobos Reaver will perish. At the end of the turn, we'll use the Harvester. Abzan will draw a Benelish Marshal. Rakdos will draw a Mountain. We will discard the Urza's Tome, and we will discard the Eviscerate. We'll untap. We'll draw. Abzan draws a Forest. Rakdos draws a Mountain. We'll play both Mountains, and we'll play the Forest. We'll play Saproling Migration, getting us 2 Saproling tokens, making Shana a 3/3. We will attack with the Bloodstone Goblin and Shana, and the Thallid Omnivore for 8 damage. We get rid of the Altar of Mogus. When Altar of Mogus is put into the graveyard from anywhere, the Horde sacrifices 2 Minotaurs. There are no Minotaurs to sacrifice. We will hand the turn over to the Horde. The Horde will play 3 cards, the first one being Descend Upon the Prey. Whenever Minotaur attacks this turn, it gains first strike until end of turn and must be blocked this turn if able. It will cast a Minotaur Younghorn, and it will cast a Massacre Totem. The Minotaur Younghorn will attack. It gains first strike and must be blocked if able. We will cast Vicious Offering on the Minotaur Younghorn, killing it. And at the end of the Horde's turn, we'll use the Harvester. Abzan will draw a Forest. Rakdos will draw a Mountain. We will discard the Benelish Marshal, and we will discard the Mountain. We'll untap. We'll draw. Abzan draws a Plains. Rakdos draws a Josuves Lich Knight. We will play the Forest and the Plains. We will play the Forebear's Blade, and we will equip the Forebear's Blade on Shana, making her a 6/3. We will attack with everybody for 13 damage. We mill 2 Refreshing Elixirs. When Refreshing Elixir is put into the graveyard from anywhere, each player gains 5 life, so we will be gaining 10 life to go to 26. And then we will play Fiery Intervention to destroy the Massacre Totem. The Massacre Totem will go to the graveyard. When Massacre Totem is put into the graveyard from anywhere, put the top 7 cards of the Horde's library into the graveyard. And then we will pass the turn to the Horde. The Horde will play 3 cards. We have a Unquenchable Fury. Each Minotaur can't be blocked this turn except by 2 or more creatures. We will play a Mogus Chosen, plays tapped, and a Intervention of Karanos. At the beginning of combat this turn, Intervention of Karanos deals 3 damage to each creature. That's going to be a massive board wipe. We'll sacrifice the Bloodstone Goblin to give this +2/+2 until end of turn, and then the Intervention of Karanos will hit, killing both of the Saproling tokens, as well as Shana Sisei's Legacy. The Thallid Omnivore and the Mogus Chosen will survive, and then at the end of the turn we'll use the Harvester. Abzan draws a Plains, and Rakdos draws a Pardic Wanderer. We will discard the Plains, and we will discard the Pardic Wanderer. We'll untap. We'll draw. Abzan gets a Saproling Migration, and Rakdos gets a Swamp. We'll play the Swamp. We will cast Saproling Migration Kicked, getting us 4 Saproling tokens. We will cast the Eldest Reborn, which will cause each opponent to sacrifice a creature. There goes the Mogus' Chosen. And then we will attack with the Thallid Omnivore for 3. There go 3. And then we will pass the turn to the Horde. The Horde will play 3 cards. We have a Phobos Reaver, a Minotaur Younghorn, and a Minotaur Younghorn. All of these 3 come in the attack. We will go ahead and take all the damage for 6 damage to go back to 20. At the end of the turn, we'll use the Harvester. Abzan draws a Song of Frailes. We will discard on Sarah's Wings. Rakdos draws a Swamp. We will discard the Swamp. We'll untap. We'll draw. Abzan draws a forest. Rakdos draws a swamp. We'll play the swamp. We'll play the forest. We will play the Song of Freyalise. Now all of my creatures have the ability to get mana each turn. We'll go ahead and equip the Forebear's Blade on a Saproling. This will go up, and the Horde will discard a card, which does nothing. And then we will attack with everybody. For 10 damage, we mill the Vitality Salve. When Vitality Salve is put into a graveyard from anywhere, each player returns a creature from his or her graveyard to the battlefield. Go ahead and take a creature back from here. It will be Shanna Sisay's Legacy. She will enter the battlefield as a 5/5. And we will get the Pardic Wanderer back here. It enters the battlefield as a 5/5 as well. Finally, we will cast Josuves, and then we will pass the turn to the Horde. The Horde will untap. The Horde will play the top 3 cards, one of which is a Minotaur Goreseeker, a Plundered Statue, and a Minotaur Younghorn. Will be attacked by the Goreseeker, 3 Younghorns, and a Phobos Reaver. Shanna will block the Goreseeker, Pardic Wanderer will block the Phobos Reaver, Josuves will block one of the Minotaur Younghorns, killing all 3 of them. No losses. Will take 4 damage and go to 16. That's the end of the Minotaur's turn. We'll untap. We'll draw. Abzan draws a forest. Rakdos draws a Keldon Overseer. The Song of Freyalise moves up to its 3rd and then will trigger, sacrificing itself and putting a counter on each of our creatures. And they all have Vigilance, Trample, and Indestructible. The Eldest Reborn will also trigger, and it will gain us a creature from any graveyard. We will take the Benalish Marshal, and then there's no need to fully attack, because if Abzan attacks, it should be able to remove the rest of the Horde's deck. So Abzan will attack with its Vigilance, Trample, Indestructibles for a ridiculous amount of damage. We'll play the Forest for 17 damage. That should get rid of these 2 cards, including a Plundered Statue, which will cause us to draw a card each. We'll play the Mountain. We'll play the Keldon Overseer. Play the Llanowar Elves. And we'll go to the Horde's turn. The young Horde Minotaurs will untap, and then they'll come in attacking. One will be eaten by Shanna, one will be eaten by Josuves, and we have defeated the Horde. That wasn't too bad at all. These 2 decks seem to do really well against this Horde, or we're just really lucky. But either way, the Dominaria sealed decks win the day against the Horde on difficult mode. Let me know what you thought about the games in the comments below. If you like this video, please hit like. If you'd like to see more such videos, please hit subscribe. Next time we'll be taking these 2 sealed decks up against the Defeated God Challenge deck from Journey to Nyx. Until then, this was Refresh. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.